This tutorial is for 5th grade, Module 5, Lesson 20. In this lesson, we're going to look at the attributes of both kites and trapezoids. We're going to start by looking at kites. What makes a kite unique is it has two sides that are adjacent, and by adjacent we mean that they're side by side. They share a vertex, and they are congruent. So you can see these two short sides are the same length, and likewise, the two longer sides that are adjacent, they share this vertex, they are also congruent. So that's one attribute we can see in a kite. What we can also see is this angle that is formed by the two sides that are not congruent will be equal to the angle across from it that is also formed by the two sides that are not congruent. If I look at my angle at the bottom, it is not congruent to the angle at the top. And the reason I know that is this bottom angle is an acute angle, and the top angle is an obtuse angle. I could figure out the measurement of that angle, though, because I know from previous lessons that the sum of the angles in any quadrilateral would be 360 degrees. So if I add 90 plus 90, that's 180. And then add 60 to that, that would be 240. And that means I would need this angle to be 120 degrees to give me that sum of 360 degrees. And we can also fill in the missing side measurements. So again, those adjacent sides are equal. So since this side is 4 centimeters, I know that this side is 4 centimeters. Since the long side is 6 centimeters, I know the other side is also 6 centimeters. If I go to my next kite, I can see that the long side is 7 centimeters and the short sides are 4 centimeters. I can fill in that missing angle since I know it would be opposite of that angle. Let's add up the three angles that we know. 105 plus 105 is 210, plus another 100 would be 310. That means that this angle needs to be 50 degrees to give me that total of 360 degrees. And here I've written my definition of a kite. It's a quadrilateral with adjacent sides or sides that are next to each other that are congruent. In this section, I use the definition of a kite to help explain why squares and rhombuses are also kites. So a kite means that we have a quadrilateral with adjacent sides that are congruent. My squares and rhombuses have 4 congruent sides, so that would mean their adjacent sides would also be congruent. So if I look down here at my square, this side and this side would be considered adjacent sides, and they're the same length. And this side would also be considered adjacent sides, and they're the same length. Same with my rhombus. These two adjacent sides are the same length, and these two adjacent sides are the same length. These two angles would be equal, and these two angles would be equal. And we can just mark that on the first shape as well. So we have these two adjacent sides the same length, and these two adjacent sides the same length, and these two angles would be congruent. So that's why the square and the rhombus also fit into the category of kite. Now let's look at the trapezoid. The definition of a trapezoid is that it is a quadrilateral with one set of parallel sides. And if you remember, parallel sides are sides that, if extended, would never cross each other and remain the same distance apart. So I'm going to mark the parallel sides on each of the trapezoids. In the first shape, my horizontal sides are parallel. In the second shape, the vertical sides are parallel. In the third shape, the horizontal ones, as well as in shape D. In shape E, the sides are parallel, and shape F, the top and bottom are parallel. So you can see how each shape has one set of parallel sides. And here I've written that definition of a trapezoid. a quadrilateral with one set of parallel sides. The last question asks me to explain why squares are not trapezoids. Let me draw a square here. So in my square, the top and bottom are parallel and the two sides are parallel. So that gives me two sets of parallel sides, not just one. And that is the reasoning that I've written down here. Squares have two sets of parallel sides, not just one, so they are not trapezoids.